Thanks, Megan, for the introduction. It's great to be here and see so many names up on the screen tonight. Win-win, the ecological and production benefits of conservation projects on farms. So I'll be going over a lot of the ecological benefits of wetlands, and that's where we'll be focusing today. And Chris is going to be talking from a contractor perspective, as well as a owner-operator of cow production here at the Crump family farm. So I'll just give us a quick background. We're going to go through my presentation first, and I'll give you an introduction on me, and then we'll move to Chris and get him introduced after. Unfortunately, I don't have any cows on my farm. I did have ground beef for dinner tonight, though, so I do come prepared mentally for this event. These are some pictures from our farm here. So I'm based down in Melbourne, which is Middlesex County, and we have blueberry operations as well as some agritourism as well. And then professionally, so farming's a hobby for a lot of people. Same here. I got into the environmental field, so I've been working through Alice Middlesex previously, and more recently with the Forest Ontario and Forest Recovery Canada program. And I really love both these experiences and helping farmers be able to put different nature-based solutions on their farms and figure out how it works into their operation. And I don't like to talk about a program unless I've experienced it myself. So this here is a picture on the right of us, my family and I, working on a restoration project on our farmland there, retiring some marginal land. It's great to see what's going on in the room. And so hopefully we can provide a bit more information tonight. It's great to see so many people have participated, but so many people here are also looking to learn more. So Chris and I will be taking a pretty practical route to it, and mostly going over a lot of different case examples from real projects that we've completed in the last few years on farms here in Middlesex County. And hopefully we can answer some of these frequently asked questions. So these here are some common questions I would get when working with farmers to implement wetlands on property. So finding out what the benefits of a wetland are, and going out to finding out who's paying for it. So I imagine if you've done any work into researching wetlands, you know they can be quite expensive. So finding out funding options available, as well as knowing if your farm can support a wetland. So knowing if a wetland can fit in with your operation, and just going through some of these cycles to see beginning to end what a wetland project could look like. So I want to move here to our first project example. And this is a picture taken on our first site visit out with the farmer back in late winter of 2023 or 2022, sorry. And one of the first questions people have when they consider a wetland is is my farm suited for a wetland? And one of these things that we can look at as a good indicator or hint to know if a wetland might be good is the presence of standing water, or cooling water, or seasonally wet areas on your farm. And on this day, fortunately, when we come out, we had a pretty good idea that it could support a wetland here. And then we start to look at some more characteristics as well, taking into account site conditions like soil. If you handled water before, you know you might need something to do with a firmer soil, and looking at the hydrology of the area as well. And the approach we like to do is always go out with the farmer, talk about the land with them, learn their goals and ideas for the farm, and also hear about what this area has been like over the time that they have been farming the area. So knowing it stays seasonally wet every year, or that always receives a lot of water in the spring. Those are really good things to know and to gather from this first site visit. And moving on to a bit later down the road in the project establishment process. So as you saw there, that was late winter that the project sort of initiated. And that's when the farmer would have reached out to a program staff. And there's lots of different funding options out there, and conservation groups available to help you depending on your region. But this would be a bit further down the road after you have gone through the different planning processes and funding processes, and there's people available to help you with that through OMAFRA and Alice and Ducks Unlimited and conservation authorities. So after all that planning is done and you're taking into those site characteristics, working to make sure it fits the operation and getting sign off with everybody, we kind of move into the construction of the wet. And it involves earthworks. So having an excavator come out, bulldozer, and beginning work on the land. So this is day one, starting to strip back some of that topsoil to create the first cell of the web. And one thing I want to point out, we were trying to give good variety with this through the different examples we give tonight and different variety of farm types. So as you can see, this is a very long and narrow farm, and just want to show that wetlands can work in a variety of different operations. So this is a week after it's been constructed, so very new after excavation. And we like to show these pictures to sort of set expectations and let the farmer or participant know what to expect going into a wet. So right after excavation, it isn't pretty, and that's something important to remember. It will take a while for the vegetation communities to reestablish and for the water to fill in. And so this picture is very normal for a newly created wetland. And there's some Chris will talk about this later on, but some different things that we planned into this wetland, into the design for ecological benefits. So if you can see my mouse here in the middle of the screen, there's a rock in there left on a little peninsula. So it has an undulating bottom and incorporates natural elements into the wetland. So you'll see that our wetlands aren't perfect circle ponds. They're very different from that, and they're constructed like this for a reason, to attract different species and grow that biodiversity. So here's about a month again, or 2 months later after construction, and you do see that water is starting to come in and the vegetation community is established. So for a lot of our projects, we do put down a cover crop or a vegetation community on the excavated soil after to keep that soil in place and prevent erosion. And then we will plant native seedlings around it to get that biodiversity back on the landscape. And then just going into another example here, this was one of the first projects that we completed together, Chris and I, back in 2019. And again, this started out on a normal fall day, going out with the landowner to check out the site and viewing different opportunities on his land for wetlands. So if you could see in that last picture, there's sort of a marginal area that's been left fallow for a couple of years between these two fields. And that's because it had stayed wet, seasonally wet every year. Equipment would be stuck in there. It just really wasn't profitable for farming. So it ended up being more trouble. This farmer and landowner had goals for increasing wildlife on his property. He was very interested in hunting, and as well as right beside the Thames River. So looking to make a difference in attracting wildlife and providing habitat, as well as helping improve the local environment around through creation. So we went out with this farmer and helped create a plan that would use this space here. We're always looking at using the space that the farmer has and working into the operation. We're here to work with the farmer and learn how to do nature and agriculture together sustainably. And this is another example of the project midway through, with the excavation going on and topsoil being stripped. And you can see on this one too, we have left some natural elements in. So working with the landscape and natural heritage to incorporate those in with trees around, which will just help the wetland develop quicker and establish. And so there's a picture again of this wetland. We like to show that this is a very normal after a wetland is established. It's going to be bare soil and not very full of water yet, but they do establish. So there's another picture again, just a couple months later, and that vegetation really starting to fill in, the water filling in as well. And it's always amazing to see how fast the wildlife comes in as well. So you hear different examples of the bird population exploding, seeing tadpoles just a couple weeks after the wetland is created. And so there's an overhead view of this wetland in 2020. And one question that I had up there at the beginning was, where's the water? So I've shown lots of pictures of full wetlands. But we have to show the other side, where wetlands are a natural system. Their water levels will fluctuate, and you will see drier years and wetter years. And this is something especially important to realize. I think last summer, the year before, we had a very, very dry summer, and we got a lot of calls wondering where the water was in the wetland. So there's another picture of this wetlands just 2 years later. it is full. But as you can see with this one, it does dry up, but it's a great opportunity. There's nothing wrong with this wetland. It's just a great opportunity to see what other habitat can be formed from these communities. In conclusion, would like to say there's lots of funding programs available to help you to get started in this process if you're interested in wetlands or stewardship projects. And that as a steward of the land, as someone who works with the land every day and has that connection, it really starts with the farmer to notice an opportunity on their land, reach out to a conservation group or someone to help lead you through that process. And each wetland is unique, and it's important to understand its value. So wanted to show the diversity of different wetland projects, all different shapes and sizes, high water levels, low water levels, and understanding the importance that can bring to your farm. I think we'll questions to the end till after both presentations, but just want to show these are pictures from wetland projects that we've completed. So a gray blue heron, a sandpiper there. I think these are some are endangered species that you'll get on these projects after. So always amazing to see being able to bring wildlife into your farming operation. Now off to you, Chris.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you, Peter. A little bit about our farm, I guess. My wife and I do farm. We're in the center of Middlesex County, right at Poplar Hill. So if anybody knows that, it's at the corner, right between Strathroy and London, north of Kamoka. So if you're looking for some place right on the highway there. The farm is 100 acres. On this particular farm that we have, it is a very rolling farm. It's got a 40-foot almost drop from the high point to the low point. We're at the very headwaters of the Sydenham River. And what I'm going to do here tonight is just speak to my own experience on our own farm. We've done a lot of wetlands over the years and we build them, but this is my own example. This is what drove us to actually get into the business of creating wetlands and erosion control structures. And what you'll see here tonight is where we started and where we're going. So this picture here was taken sometime around 2012, one of the first aerial satellite pictures that we have. It's looking down. You can see the area of concern is right in the middle. There's an old slurry store there. Our yards are all sloped towards the bottom. We have a manure shed there, but it didn't hold all the manure. The farm was built into the side of the hill in the early 1900s, and everything ran through the barns and down to the McLean Drain, which empties into the Sydenham River. And I'm pointing at the screen, and I don't think you can see it. So this is the McLean Drain. It starts here. It's a grass waterway at this point. It comes down the center and then dumps right into the headwaters of Sydenham right here and down around behind the house. So we had a problem and we had to do something with it. We wanted to clean up our sediment. We wanted to clean up our runoff through our yards. We had a lot of organic matter being pushed through into the river itself. And so essentially we got to do a better job of, number one, marketing ourselves as farmers, marketing ourselves as a place to buy good, wholesome food, and marketing our product, which is beef. And so we felt we were not doing a good job and we had to do something. So we reached out. We couldn't do it all ourselves. I went to Rutgers University. I got my, I couldn't figure out how much water was coming through. So I went to Rutgers. I got my certification for hydrology so I could calculate the amount of water. I've got my certification from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food in erosion control so we could understand how to build structures that would mitigate the erosion that was happening. And then we kind of calculated what it was going to take to do this project. And it was way outside of our abilities. So I reached out to Peter, actually from Alice, the conservation authorities. He put me in touch with the OMAF to help us to get things looking better and working correctly. So you can see the amount of water coming through. We're at the bottom of a 405-acre watershed. We take every bit of water that comes down there either through underground drainage or overland flow. And it just got to be more and more with the large rain events that we were having. We tried to put dams up and everything else, and we just couldn't stop the water. And so if you can't stop the water or stop the flow or stop the erosion or stop the manure going in, you've got to change things. And that's what we did. So like I said, we went through Alice and Peter and contacted a bunch of experts. Myself was included in the planning and devising of this. We decided to go with a clean water diversion. So we're going to divert all the clean water around the barns instead of through the barn areas. We are going with a huge tree planting of 2,500 trees on about 6 acres, 7 acres in that neighborhood. We went with berms and basins. So we went with wasp cobs, which is a type of erosion control that stops the water and releases it slowly so we could have ponding areas. We built a very large grass waterway. We built sediment control ponds, mosquito mitigation ponds, clarification ponds, phosphorus reduction ponds, organic sink, and a clarification pond. So that's 6 different ponds we built. 1 grass waterway, 2 rock chutes, a wasp cob, and 2 berms and basins, I guess. So this is going to kind of show you what was doing. This is our view from the east looking west. This is a clarification pond and a phosphorus sink. So it takes whatever runoff we have from the cattle and puts it into an organic matter sink, which is where I'm standing, into a phosphorus retention pond, over to a clarification pond, and slowly releases it into the McLean drain. That's a view of it just after its completion and what it looked like. The berm you see along here separates the treated water from, on the far side over here is the clean water. So it takes 99% of the water that comes over that 400 acres, goes right down through that big grass waterway, the other side of the berm. So we're separating out the dirty water from the clean. This is next summer after the project was done. That is our grass waterway, and it holds about 1 foot of water and it slows it down. It's incredible. I'll show you some pictures here later on. That's one of the rock chutes we put in. It does a 5-foot drop. So it takes the water, changes the direction of the water, and puts it over some large boulders. In this case, we used riprap from a cement factory to get that rough edge to slow the water down. And all erosion control really is just the slowing down of water or the reducing in volume of water. That's a picture of the farm the following summer. So instead of all that brown and sediment and erosion, we've got trees that have been started. We've got an excellent treatment facility for our water coming through the yards. The back 3 pastures now is where we house the cattle, and in the barn yards now, so we scrape daily, and we just reduced the burden on these fields. That's part of the clean water diversion. So instead of the water coming through this direction, the water now goes around and then underground here and then down to the grass water. It just makes everything so much cleaner, so much neater, so much nicer on the road, and a lot easier to handle our medium. Now we do run, it was 40 cows at the time, cow-calf. We do have feedlots that'll handle up to 200 at a time, and we try to get all of our own cattle we have on farm marketed through our farm store. So we are involved with the public a lot. We now offer tours of our place. We're just so proud of it, and it looks so nice. It's come a long ways from that gray eroded mess that we had. So it's a place now that we are proud of to show. I think it shows off the beef industry incredibly well. It's something that people come and take a look at, and they do enjoy walking. We've got trails all back through the bush and on the other side as well. So we'll show you. This is an interesting picture here. You can see on the right side where I tramp the grass in the grass water, and that water is moving down there and it's coming down, and you see it's turbid, and you can see the actual dirt and soil in there where the water comes through the actual foliage, through the grass itself, and slows down. It's not nearly as turbid, and it's much, much cleaner going into the plain drain. So it's nice to leave the grass standing in those grass waterways. This is the next area we had concern with. We had a lot of runoff from our driveways and yards. There's 2 acres of gravel that we have for turning the trucks and the tractors and that sort of thing around. We had a lot of overland flow. And so what we did here is we dug designed and built a clarification pond, a sediment reduction pond, and then just a habitat pond for ducks and geese. This handles about 10 acres of overflow from our yards. It clarifies the water. It lets it flow. This is the sediment pond here. So that one has a 5 to 7 year lifespan. We have to clean it out every 5 to 7 years, but then it overflows into our, we call it just a habitat pond. So it was originally built for turtles and ducks and that sort of thing. It ended up being a dog swimming pond. So now we've got a golden retriever that likes it more than anything else. Here's another project that we did on our own farm as well, is a crossing of the McLean drain. This is probably the wettest day we had. This is after 7-inch rain. We installed this on a Tuesday, I believe it was, in the morning, and then we had 7 inches on a Thursday during the day. So you can see in the back, that's not the lake, that's our pasture where the cattle are at that point in time, and it just handled it beyond our expectations. So 7 inches in less than 24 hours, and the designs work. They hold, they do well. The cattle now cross this way instead of going through the drain. It keeps things clean and neat, tidy, and very, very well. Our fencing to keep the cattle out of the grass waterways. We've retired 12 acres now from actual production. We used to have cattle pasturing on 12 acres on our farm. Down this area, we are now down to about 40 acres, and we've got a really no decline in the bottom line in our revenue. There's some high water levels again. There's a blue heron kind of enjoying it. That's really nice. You can see him right back here. We've got a lot of those animals. That's kind of interesting too. We started off, when we first did this, we did an environmental survey, and we had 22 or 25 species of birds. And that last survey we did last summer, which is for fun, we had over 45. So it's increased our number of birds, and the amount of habitat has increased the number of birds, the population. You know, we've seen everything from, we even had a badger. We've seen an increase in rabbits, an increase in foxes, an increase in all types of weasels, right from stoats through to badgers, I guess. We've had fishers and all kinds of things there. So it's really very interesting what we've seen in wildlife increase. It's kind of hard on chickens, I grant you that, but I'll tell you what, the cattle really enjoy it. So we do pretty well. We've fenced off just for shits and giggles, 2 acres either side of the creek. We didn't have to go this far, but we went with this so we could put in a native fruit garden at 2 acres. So down in this part now, there's everything from pawpaws to persimmons to wild raspberry to elderberry, and they're coming along quite nicely. So hopefully there's 2 acres of wild fruit coming up in the next couple of years that our grandchildren can enjoy. That's a covering of the grass instead of the cattle going through there like they did before. They don't have access to it anymore, so the stream covers in. It cools the water. You know, hopefully in the next couple of years, we see trout back up this stream. There was, apparently, the neighbor told me at one point, there was trout that actually flowed up there back when he was a kid in the 20s and 30s, and he hadn't seen it since then. So hopefully we can attract some trout back up that stream again. What it looks like on the other side of the culvert, it's covered in as well. And that is our farm, and that is our sign on the side of the road. We've been very, very lucky and fortunate to be participants with Alice and Alice Middlesex, the conservation authorities, Ducks Unlimited. We've just been very, very happy with what they've done, how they've guided us. You know, they aren't forceful. They help fund all these projects. Interesting thing about that grass waterway and the erosion control structures that we put in there. We went to the township as well to see what a doubling of that main that goes through our farm would be worth. It was north of $220,000, and this whole project was put in for about 55 or 7 or something. Right, Peter? In that neighborhood, it was very, very good. And we put in some in-kind, and the rest, the actual money, the layout was from Alice and the conservation authorities and Ducks. So I've been very happy with what they've done. It just made our place look so much nicer, so much better, and so much more usable for the public as well as us. So anyway, that's my presentation. Thank you for your time and your attention.